Okay, so we saw what happened to produce new erythrocytes or new red blood cells. Now what we need to do is we need to double check, or we need to learn how we create, sorry, how we destroy old red blood cells. And I know there's this like circular chart in the lecture. I think I'm gonna try to make this chart a little bit different, I was thinking, but I haven't really thought it through completely just yet. Um, so I might just do the same thing that the chart is. Okay, so no, I'm gonna kind of adjust it slightly. Adjusting it slightly, meaning I'm gonna make the same kind of flow chart, but I'm just gonna make it in a little bit different sense. And so over here we have, our femur, and then inside of our femur, like right in our spongy bone, we're gonna have our red marrow. And in the red marrow, this is where we have our blood stem cells. This is going to go back to this chart here where we have our blood stem cells. Remember? So when we get sent, let's just kind of do, this is the, let's do blood supply over here, okay? So red stuff's going to be blood supply. So coming into the bone, the blood supply, you're going to have EPO, right? The erythropoietin, which is going to actually go into the bone marrow. And when it goes into that bone marrow, if you recall, what is going to happen is you're going to have new red blood cells. So I'm going to produce new red blood cells. And then basically these red blood cells are going to circulate for about 100 to 120 days. They're going to go through really small capillaries. And as they go through those really small capillaries, they're going to twist and bend and all these sorts of different things. And they're not going to be perfectly round anymore. And, they're just not going to be good. It's like human. Once you get to 40s, 50s, 60s, you're just not the same anymore. Oh, whoops. And in this red blood cell case, we now have to break it down because it's not as efficient anymore. So the red blood cells, all red blood cells actually are going to essentially end up either in the liver. So there's my liver. Whoops. I don't know why it keeps doing that. And instead of making it red, I'm going to make it in black. Okay, so there's my liver. So there's my liver, or they're going to end up in the spleen. And so technically the spleen is over on the left side of the body near the stomach, right? So this is my spleen. So just imagine we circulate, and we're either going to circulate to the spleen or to the liver, and this is where these old red blood cells are going to be broken down. The primary thing that does this is the spleen. So we're just going to blow up the inside of the spleen. Let's just imagine we're looking at the inside of the spleen. The inside of the spleen is going to have a red area and a white area. The red area is where we get rid of old red blood cells, and the white area is where we're going to have leukocytes. So one of these leukocytes is a macrophage. Okay. And the macrophage basically is just a cell that eats. Macro is big and phage is an eater. So this is a big eater cell. So essentially what happens is as our red blood cells come in here and they're not good anymore, the macrophage is going to see them and it's going to eat that red blood cell. And when it eats the red blood cell, that red blood cell ends up inside of the macrophage and is then going to be broken down. If you recall, most of the red blood cell is hemoglobin. So basically what we have to do is we have to take hemoglobin. And we have to break that down. So it's something that the body can get rid of either as waste products or it can reuse. Remember that hemoglobin is made up of heme plus iron and globin. Okay, so what's going to happen is the macrophage is going to break down globin into amino acids. And it basically regurgitates it up, sort of. And when it does, that ends up back in the spleen where all the blood has been filtered, and that goes back into the bloodstream. So here we have amino acids. They go back into the bloodstream. And basically, they're reused. To make new proteins. Okay. Then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out what happens to iron. So essentially, the macrophage is going to get rid of iron, and iron, so we're going to have Fe2 plus I think transferrin, plus we're just going to say a protein carrier. And you need a protein carrier because iron can't just dissolve in blood. You have to transfer it through I'm pretty sure it's transferrin. Okay, and that Fe2 plus, or the iron, ends up going back into the marrow through the bloodstream, and basically it's used to make new hemoglobin. That's the idea. You make new hemoglobin, you make new red blood cells, okay, using the iron. What's going to happen to the heme is that heme is going to be broken down in the macrophage as bilirubin. Okay. And then bilirubin is going to go through the bloodstream towards the liver. I know the liver is up there. I'm just going to redraw it. Okay. So bilirubin goes towards the liver. Sorry, I didn't really think about this. There's not that room there. And we're going to have like a duodenum right here and a kidney. Ugh, that's really small. Sorry. Okay. So essentially, bilirubin circulates around blood, goes back and hits the liver again, and then the liver is going to use that, and instead of secreting it in blood, the liver is going to secrete it via the common bile duct, right? Hepatic ducts to common hepatic duct to common bile duct into the duodenum. It's one of the products that's in bile. So it's one of the things that's going to help us emulsify and break down fats. And then this goes through multiple stages of being broken down until it exits out and is part of feces. One of the products that it gets broken down into, I forgot, I gotta use my red here. One of the products it gets broken down to and is sent via the bloodstream to the kidney is urobilin. Okay, so that urobilin actually gets filtered through the kidney and it's going to create the yellow color of urine. This is our whole breakdown process. So you can see amino acids get reused, iron gets reused, and then bilirubin is actually broken down into a waste product, or heme is broken down into a pigment molecule waste product called bilirubin. The body reuses it in order to help with digestion. And then if you can't, the stuff that you can't break down or get rid of through digestion, that gets absorbed back into the bloodstream so that the kidney can get rid of it. Why doesn't it just exit out of feces? I don't know. It's probably because these intermediates here are things that maybe create another pigment molecule that it gets reabsorbed with something else, maybe like a protein or a fat. It's reabsorbed not in a good way. I don't know. I'll look it up. We'll figure that out. I'll figure that out. Okay. So this is how you get rid of erythrocytes. You should understand all of these steps, and you should really pay attention to bilirubin, right? Because bilirubin is one of those things that a blood test is checking for because it checks liver function, okay? The other thing is remember albumin. Albumin is a plasma protein made by the liver, so we'd also check albumin levels, and if those are high or low, it can tell us about liver functions also. Okay, so next we're going to do blood typing in another video.